By Thich Nhat Hanh, The Miracles of Mindfulness, the Classic Guide. Sowed the Seeds of a Revolution, Powerful and Relevant, from Professor Mark Williams, University of Oxford. The Father of Mindfulness, the Irish Times. In this classic guide, Nobel Peace Prize nominee and Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh shows us how to acquire the skills to slow our lives down and anchor our awareness in the here and now. Even simple acts such as going for an evening walk or enjoying a cup of tea can become powerful acts of meditation. Through mindfulness, we learn to flourish in the present moment, the only way to develop true understanding and peace, both in ourselves and in the wider world. Thich Nhat Hanh's practical advice and insights make the miracle of mindfulness available to us all. The first book to awaken a mainstream readership to the subject of mindfulness, a testimony to the power of Thich Nhat Hanh's elegant and profound teaching, from Jon Kabat-Zinn, author of Full Catastrophe Living, shows us the connection between personal inner peace and peace on earth, from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So, just because we're talking about Mother Earth, we're going to bring in the balance of the energies. In the last reading, we had 64, the weighted tuning fork, which balances the peripheral and central nervous systems in the body. So now we're going to balance the sun and moon, the masculine and feminine energies of the planets. So I invite you to close your eyes, to bring your awareness into your breath. Take a deep breath in. Have a sigh out. Bring yourself into your body. Place your hands on your heart and your belly if you feel so inclined to do so. Bring yourself into your heart, into your body, so that your subconscious is listening to the words of the book and the reading. A little shake. A bit of a drink, my side of Vanayoga and diatomaceous earth. Maybe not, still a bit hot. About the author. Born in Hue, Vietnam, Thich Nhat Hanh is a Buddhist monk, poet, scholar and human rights activist. In 1967, he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Martin Luther King. The author of many acclaimed books, including Peace is Every Step, Old Path, White Clouds and Anger. He lives at Plum Village, his meditation retreat centre in France, and travels worldwide to teach and lead retreats. Bit of a tongue twister. The Miracle of Mindfulness. Contents. Translator's preface by Moby Ho. 1. The essential discipline. 2. The miracle is to walk on earth. 3. A day of mindfulness. 4. The pebble. 5. One is all is one. The 5 aggregates. 6. The almond tree in your front yard. 7. 3 wondrous answers. Exercises in mindfulness. Nhat Hanh, Seen with the Eyes of Compassion by James Forrest, and a selection of Buddhist sutras. Translator's preface. The Miracle of Mindfulness was originally written in Vietnamese as a long letter to Brother Quang, a main staff member of the School of Youth for Social Service in South Vietnam in 1974. Its author, the Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, had founded the school in the 1960s as an outgrowth of engaged Buddhism. It drew young people deeply committed to acting in a spirit of compassion. Upon graduation, the students used the training they received to respond to the needs of the peasants caught in the turmoil of the war. They helped rebuild bombed villages, teach children, set up medical stations, and organise agricultural cooperatives. The workers' methods of reconciliation were often misunderstood in the atmosphere of fear and mistrust engendered by the war. They persistently refused to support either armed party and believed that both sides were the reflection of one reality. And the true enemies were not people but ideology, hatred and ignorance. Their stance threatened those engaged in the conflict, and in the first years of the school, a series of attacks were carried out against the students. Several were kidnapped and murdered, as the war dragged on even after the Paris Peace Accords were signed in 1973. It seemed at times impossible not to succumb to exhaustion and bitterness. Continuing to work in a spirit of love and understanding required great courage. From exile in France, Thich Nhat Hanh wrote to Brother Quang to encourage the workers during this dark time. Thich Nhat Hanh. Thai, the form of address for Vietnamese monks, means teacher. I think it's Thai. Okay. Wished to remind them of the essential discipline of following one's breath, to nourish and maintain calm mindfulness, even in the midst of the most difficult circumstances. Because Brother Quang and the students were his colleagues and friends, the spirit of this long letter that became the miracle of mindfulness is personal and direct. When Thay speaks here of village paths, he speaks of paths he had actually walked with Brother Quang. When he mentions the bright eyes of a young child, he mentions the names of Brother Quang's own son. I was living as an American volunteer with the Vietnamese Buddhist peace delegation in Paris when Thay was writing the letter. Thay headed the delegation, which served as an overseas liaison office for the peace and reconstruction efforts of the Vietnamese Buddhists, including the School of Youth for Social Service. I remember late evenings over tea when Thay explained sections of the letter to delegation members and a few close friends. Quite naturally, we began to think of other people in other countries who might also benefit from the practices described in the book. They had recently become acquainted with young Buddhists in Thailand who had been inspired by the witness of engaged Buddhism in Vietnam. They too wished to act in a spirit of awareness and reconciliation to help avert the armed conflict erupting in Thailand. And they wanted to know how to work without being overcome by anger and discouragement. Several of them spoke English, and we discussed translating Brother Quang's letter. The idea of a translation took on a special poignancy when the confiscation of Buddhist publishing houses in Vietnam made the project of printing the letter as a small book in Vietnamese impossible. I happily accepted the task of translating the book into English. For nearly 3 years, I had been living with the Vietnamese Buddhist peace delegation, where day and night I was immersed in the lyrical sound of the Vietnamese language. They had been my formal Vietnamese teacher. We had slowly read through some of his earlier books, sentence by sentence. I had thus acquired a rather unusual vocabulary of Vietnamese in Buddhist terms. They, of course, had been teaching me far more language during those 3 years. His presence was a constant, gentle reminder to return to one's true self, to be awake, by being mindful. As I sat down to translate the miracle of mindfulness, I remembered the episodes during the past years that had nurtured my own practice of mindfulness. There was the time I was cooking furiously and could not find a spoon. I'd sat down amid a scattered pile of pans and ingredients. As I searched here and there, they entered the kitchen and smiled. He asked, What is Moby looking for? Of course, I answered, the spoon. I'm looking for the spoon. They answered again with a smile, no, Moby is looking for Moby. They suggested I do the translation slowly and steadily, in order to maintain mindfulness. I translated only 2 pages a day. In the evenings, they and I went over those pages, changing and correcting words and sentences. Other friends provided editorial assistance. It is difficult to describe the actual experience of translating his words, but my awareness of the feel of the pen and paper, awareness of the position of my body and of my breath, enabled me to see most clearly the mindfulness with which they had written each word. As I watched my breath, I could see Brother Kwang and the workers of the School of Youth for Social Service. More than that, I began to see that the words held the same personal and lively directness for any reader, because they had been written in mindfulness and lovingly directed to real people. As I continued to translate, I could see an expanding community, the school's workers, the young Thai Buddhists, and many other friends throughout the world. When the translation was completed, we typed it, and they printed 100 copies on the tiny offset machine squeezed into the delegation's bathroom. Mindfully, addressing each copy to friends in many countries was a happy task for delegation members. Since then, like ripples in a pond, the miracle of mindfulness has travelled far. It has been translated into several other languages and has been printed or distributed on every continent in the world. One of the joys of being the translator has been to hear from many people who have discovered the book. I once met someone in a bookstore who knew a student who had taken a copy to friends in the Soviet Union. And recently, I met a young Iraqi student in danger of being deported to his homeland, where he faces death for his refusal to fight in a war he believes cruel and senseless. He and his mother have both read The Miracle of Mindfulness and are practicing awareness of the breath. I have learned, too, that proceeds from the Portuguese edition are being used to assist poor children in Brazil. Prisoners, refugees, healthcare workers, educators and artists are among those whose lives have been touched by this little book. I often think of the miracle of mindfulness as something of a miracle itself, a vehicle that continues to connect lives throughout the world. American Buddhists have been impressed by the natural and unique blending of Theravada and Mahayana traditions, characteristic of Vietnamese Buddhism, which the book expresses. As a book on the Buddhist path, The Miracle of Mindfulness is special because its clear and simple emphasis on basic practice enables any reader to begin a practice of his or her own immediately. Interest in the book, however, is not limited to Buddhists. It has found a home with people of many different religious traditions. One's breath, after all, is hardly attached to any particular creed. One's breath, after all, is hardly attached to any particular creed. Those who enjoy this book will likely be interested in other books by Thich Nhat Hanh, which have been translated into English. His books in Vietnamese, including short stories, novels, essays, historical treatises on Buddhism and poetry, number in the dozens. While several of his earlier books in English are no longer in print, more recent works available in translation include A Guide to Walking Meditation, Being Peace, and The Sun in My Heart. Denied permission to return to Vietnam, Thich Nhat Hanh spends most of the year living in Plum Village, a community he helped found in France. There, Under the guidance of the same Brother Kwang to whom the miracle of mindfulness was originally addressed years ago, community members tend hundreds of plum trees. Profits from the sales of their fruit are used to assist hungry children in Vietnam. In addition, Plum Village is open every summer to visitors from around the world who wish to spend a month of mindfulness and meditation. In recent years, Thich Nhat Hanh has also made annual visits to the United States and Canada to conduct week-long retreats organised by the Buddhist Peace Fellowship. I would like to express special gratitude to Beacon Press for having the vision to print this new edition of the Miracle of Mindfulness. I hope that each new person whom it reaches will sense that the book is addressed as personally to him or her as it was to Brother Kwang and the workers of the School of Youth for Social Service. Moby Ho, August 1987. The Miracle of Mindfulness, Chapter 1, The Essential Discipline, will be started on the next one. This is just an introduction. Thank you. Namaste. We're just going to give a bit of lungs to help detox our body, clear the emotions of anger, fear, resentment, and transform them into forgiveness and gratitude. Fat cells, blood, because that carries through, and the lungs, and then Venus, because it's in retrograde for self-loving. So I invite you to close your eyes. Bring yourself into your body and your heart and your awareness to your breath. Just observing how you are breathing, where you are breathing from. Are you breathing from your belly? Are you breathing from your chest? Where are your hands? I invite you to put your hands on your belly, to feel through your sense of touch. Are you breathing through your nose? Are you breathing through your mouth? Are you aware of the pause, the space between the inhalation and the exhalation? The pause, the space between the exhalation and the inhalation. Can you notice your breath getting longer on each inhalation and exhalation? And the space, the pause, lengthening with the length of the breath. Can you feel your body relaxing, spreading, sinking into whatever space you're sitting on, laying on? Is there sound wanting to come out on your exhalation? Buzzing for us helps to buzz away pain and stress. In yoga, observation, awareness of one's breath, is stage 1 of the Ujjayi breath. Namaste. Have a good day.